Okay, so we're looking at these readings you brought together, Isaiah 50, Psalm 69, and then that section of Matthew 26. When you put them side by side like this, what connections start to emerge? What really stands out?
Well, the first thing I think is this really strong thread of prophetic suffering,
Hmm.
but it's immediately tangled up with the idea of betrayal. It's quite striking.
Right, suffering and betrayal. How does Isaiah kick that off?
So in Isaiah 50, you have this figure who talks about being equipped by God, given a disciple's tongue, to help the weary.
An alert ear, too, right, to hear God's instruction.
Exactly. But then this same person faces just, well, brutal opposition. We're talking physical abuse, insults, public shame.
Mm.
But what's fascinating is how it's framed. It's not weakness. It's endured with this incredible resolve because they're absolutely convinced God is helping them.
That line, I have set my face like flint, that really captures it.
It really does. And know that I shall not be put to shame. There's such certainty there, such unwavering determination despite everything.
It feels like that divine connection is just unbreakable for this figure. That purpose is so clear that nothing external can really shake it.
Yeah.
And then you shift to Psalm 69, and that suffering, it feels incredibly personal, almost raw.
It does. It becomes this very raw cry of anguish. You get the sense of someone totally alienated, even from their own family.
And why? Because of their passion for God's house,
Yeah.
right? It's almost paradoxical.
It is. I am eaten up with zeal for your house, the psalmist says, and insults directed against you fall on me.
So the suffering isn't just random.
It's linked directly to their devotion.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's a consequence of being dedicated to something higher.
Yeah.
And the cost is so tangible, isn't it? Estrangement, mockery.
And that detail about being thirsty and getting poison and vinegar instead, that's just
And
chilling.
incredibly visceral. It paints such a vivid picture of utter rejection and torment. You can almost feel it.
You really can. But like Isaiah, even in that deep pain, there's still this underlying belief, isn't there? This idea that pleasing God matters more than, say, traditional sacrifices. Yes, absolutely. And it builds towards that hopeful conclusion.
Right, that affirmation that God listens to the poor, he has never scorned his captive people. There's a definite shift there.
Exactly. It moves from that intense personal agony towards this broader confidence in God's justice. It's not just about enduring. It's believing in eventual vindication.
A kind of resilience that feels both deeply human and also, well, divinely supported.
That's a good way to put it. You see the depth of the pain, but also this unshakable trust.
Okay, so then we get to Matthew's gospel, and the focus narrows right down to a specific act of betrayal.
It does. We're introduced to Judas Iscariot making that deal with the chief priests. 30 pieces of silver.
And Matthew explicitly says, from then onwards, he began to look for an opportunity to betray him. There's a coldness to it, a calculation.
There really is. And think about the contrast. We've just been talking about this profound faith and endurance in Isaiah and the Psalm. And then, bam, stark human treachery.
Yes.
And the setting the Passover meal, that's huge.
How so? What does the Passover setting add?
Well, Passover is all about liberation, right? God delivering the Israelites from slavery in Egypt. It's foundational.
Okay.
So having this betrayal happen during the Passover meal, it layers on meaning. It's like a dark mirror image almost of that original deliverance story. It adds complexity.
It definitely does. And that scene at the Last Supper itself, the tension is palpable.
You can feel it. Jesus just drops that bombshell. One of my closest friends, is going to betray me.
And the reaction, great distress. Every single one asking, not me, Lord, surely.
Yeah, imagine the shock, the confusion, maybe even that flicker of self-doubt for a second. These are the people who'd walked with him, seen everything.
It underscores how deep the betrayal cuts, coming from inside that circle.
Absolutely. The intimacy makes the treachery so much more devastating. The idea must have been almost unthinkable for the others.
And Jesus' answer about who it is,
Yeah.
it's sort of cryptic, but also points right at the act.
Someone who has dipped his hand into the dish with me. It highlights that shared meal, that fellowship that's about to be broken so profoundly. And then comes that incredibly heavy statement. The Son of Man goes as it's written.
Right, fulfilling scripture.
But woe to the one who betrays him. Better for that man if he had never been born.
Wow. The weight of that, it's immense.
It really is. It brings up that whole complex interplay, doesn't it, between like divine destiny and individual responsibility.
Scripture is fulfilled, yet the person doing the fulfilling, through their own choice, faces this terrible consequence.
Exactly. It forces you to think about fate versus free will. How do those things coexist? It's a timeless question.
And then, the final moment in this passage, Judas himself asks the question.
Yeah, not me, Rabbi, surely. Even knowing, perhaps, or needing to ask.
And Jesus' response is so quiet, so direct. It is you who say it.
Not a big public accusation, just this devastating private confirmation between them.
It feels like everything converges right there. The prophecy, the human choice, the personal cost.
It really does. So when you step back and look at all three texts, you see Isaiah's figure embodying this steadfast faith through suffering, this prophetic endurance.
Then the psalmist, voicing that deep personal pain of alienation because of devotion, but still holding on to hope for God's justice for the poor, the captive.
Right.
And then Matthew gives us the stark, specific reality of betrayal, a calculated act with huge consequences unfolding during the Passover.
It's quite a tapestry. The contrast is really powerful, isn't it, between the kind of faith shown in Isaiah and the psalm.
That unwavering resilience.
Yeah, that resilience versus the deliberate, breaking of trust in the gospel. It highlights both the heights of faith and the depths of human failure.
And placing it all within that Passover context, like we said, it really makes you reconsider themes of sacrifice and deliverance in a new light.
That connection between the fulfillment of Scripture and the warning to Judas, that lingers.
It does. How does individual choice work within a plan that seems foretold? What responsibility does someone bear if they become an instrument of prophecy but through a terrible act?
These aren't easy questions. Not at all. But that's what makes these texts so enduring, I think. They grapple with these fundamental human experiences. Loyalty, betrayal, suffering, hope.
And the choices we make within whatever larger story we find ourselves in?
Exactly. It really prompts reflection on how these ancient themes still play out, in our world and our own lives, even today.